Monday. Hectic day. Mondays usually are. But I'm here and accounted for. 377th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Week 13, one game away from being in the books. Jaguars, Bengals tonight. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. I've already given you my thoughts on that game, but I'll reiterate that once more. But week 13 was fascinating to me. Right? And I thought statements were made whilst standing on business. We saw a lot of teams come out and make definitive statements. And I'm going to convey that to you here on the 377th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 377th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Got a lot to get to today and not a lot of time. So we're going to avoid all of the small talk and get straight to the proceedings this evening. We're going to jump straight into this gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. And I want to talk about statements being made. A lot of teams, I thought, made massive statements in week 13 whilst standing on business. Like, hey, this is who we are. This is what we represent. This is who we've been this season, and we ain't going nowhere. And sometimes your eyes are telling you one thing, but your mind is like, bro, don't believe the hype. Like, I don't really buy into this shit right here. You know, and a team like Indianapolis, for instance, first-year head coach, Shane Steichen coming over from Philadelphia. You're like, I mean, he cool or whatever. I thought he did a masterful job last year in Philadelphia. But I'm like, he cool or whatever, but the Colts stink. They don't have any talent, nothing that you want. And, you know, got a young quarterback. He got injured. It's Gardner Minshew. Like, they couldn't even win a game in Philadelphia with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Like, what are we talking about here? Minshew's playing good football, and that defense is doing just enough. And the Colts went on the road in a game that I did not think they were going to win. They were down 17-7. They were being thoroughly dominated, and their special teams made the difference. And really, the Titans' special teams lost them this game. 2 block kicks leading to 10 points, 1 scoop and score, and then a missed extra point because one of the block kicks got your punter hurt that forced you to then have to put one of your backup quarterbacks in as your holder, which then facilitated a missed extra point that would have given you a 1-point lead and subsequently would have won you the game in regulation if all things would have remained the same. But that's no here nor there. The Colts made that happen, and they're finding ways. And that's what you do in a season like this, is you find ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. And the Colts are now 7-5. And whether they make the playoffs or not is irrelevant at this point. This is a successful first year for Shane Steichen in Indianapolis, and they're not going away. The statement that they made on Sunday by going on the road to Tennessee in an environment that the Titans had not lost in all season long, they were down 17-7, you know, and they were being thoroughly dominated. For them to find a way to scratch, claw, get that game to overtime, win that football game, speaks volumes, get to 7-5. They're not going away. Now, I don't know if it'll be enough when it's all said and done for them to make the playoffs, but they aren't going away. That's the statement that the Titans made. Hey, we for real. Stop casting us aside when you talk about AFC playoff teams. Stop dismissing us. Stop leaving us out of the conversation. We're not going nowhere. Point taken. Another team that made a statement on Sunday, the Houston Texans. Same division, Same statement. Hey, I know we are a feel-good story, similar to the Colts, first-year head coach. Weren't expecting much out of us. We were both supposed to have young quarterbacks. The Texans do have a young quarterback. He's playing at a high level, but he's still a rookie. So there's still going to be mistakes made. And we've seen that over the last 2 or 3 weeks with him, where he's starting to come back down to earth a bit. But where he is leaving off, the defense is picking up. And that's the sign of a good team. Complementary football. Hey, offense don't have the fastball today. And we've seen it with the Texans in particular. There are weeks where the offense is capable of scoring 37 and the defense is going to give up 33 or 34. Hey, we got to score 37 this week. All right, got it. Vice versa. This week, Denver's defense ain't having that shit. So you're going to have to pick up the slack, defense, and hold them down and make sure that we win this game. I got you. Don't worry about it. And don't look now, but they're 7-5. They're 7-5. And they're like, hey, I don't know if we're going to make the playoffs or not. There's a lot of good teams on the back end of this AFC thing, right? But don't discount us. Don't leave us out. Don't treat us like a feel-good story, but we're not going nowhere. I got you. Point taken. The Broncos came into that game riding a 5-game heater. Like, that's not something you just dismiss. And they knocked them off. Texans are here to stay. They made a statement. The Cowboys, I thought, made a statement in Week 13 on Thursday Night Football. Look, I get it. The Seahawks had been struggling. Geno was on fire. In past years, we've seen the Cowboys in that exact same spot on a primetime stage lose a football game like that one. And in certain instances, get blown out. And for them to come back after trailing for much of that game, to come back, win the game, and then close it out on defense, which had struggled most of the night, you got to give credit where credit is due. And that statement that they made was, this ain't the same Cowboys team you accustomed to seeing. And maybe it is when we get to the playoffs. But for right now, Dak Prescott is playing at a different level. And they're finding ways to get it done. And they look different right now. And they got a chance to win that division. They're serious. Like that statement was, hey, we're not going to drop the ball again. We're going to give ourselves a chance to win this division. Now, they got a lot of tough games. And they may ultimately lose some games down the stretch that prohibits them from winning the division. I still don't think they're going to, even if they beat the Eagles on Sunday, I don't think they're going to win the division because I see them losing to a Buffalo or Detroit or someone like that down the stretch. They got a tough schedule. The tough part of their schedule is coming up. And we'll see how they navigate it. Miami is on it as well. They're going to lose at least one, if not two more games, I feel like. And that's not going to allow them to win the division. But they're not going down without a fight. Past years, the Cowboys would have lost that game to Seattle, and it would have made Sunday night's game anticlimactic because even if they beat Philadelphia, they still would have a lead, and they wouldn't be in a position to, have a share of first place. By beating Seattle, it puts them in a position where they've got a chance now to be NFC East champions or be in first place, rather, after, Sunday's final at 11:37 on Sunday night. They've got a chance to have a slice of first place. Another statement. The Rams. Look, I get it. The Browns featured Joe Flacco on Sunday. I'm aware. I get it. I'm aware. Still, win the games that you're supposed to win. And it wasn't easy. It was hard fought. But when they needed to make plays, they made them. And they got the win. And now they're back to 500. Remember early in the season when they went to Seattle week 1 and blew them out, competed like hell early in the season, lost some games. Like they competed their asses off in week 2 against San Francisco, but they lost. And I remember coming back and telling you guys, maybe we were wrong about the Rams. And then we watched them in a slew of games where they didn't get it done and the offense just didn't look up to par and the defense was meh. And we go, and I think it culminated. It hit its peak of disappointment when they went on the road and lost to the Packers at Lambeau Field with Brett Rippon at quarterback. And you just looked at you and said, ugh, that's nasty. And I was like, maybe Sean might be better off, getting into somebody's booth or somebody's studio show. Maybe this is the it. Maybe this is the end. And now they've rattled off 4 straight wins, including beating some damn good opponents. And now here they are at 6-6, fighting for a playoff spot. And again, statement made. We're not going nowhere. Like, we've overcome adversity. We got a lot of young players, but if Stafford's in the lineup, we think we can beat anybody. And we still got Sean McVay calling the plays, and that means something. And that defense, it ain't half bad. It ain't great, but it ain't terrible. Look out for the Rams. Speaking of a team that's kind of hitting their stride now, Green Bay Packers. One of the biggest statements made in week number 13 was from these said Green Bay Packers. And I think another statement was made in that game as well on the opposite end by Kansas City. We'll start with Green Bay. I thought that statement that they made, Jordan Love playing the way that he played, that young roster coming of age, them making plays in the red zone when they had to have them to keep Kansas City out of the end zone and getting that interception late and getting the stops that they needed to preserve the victory, that spoke volumes about the growth of this team during this season. A month ago, they wouldn't have been able to make the stops necessary to win this football game and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. A month ago, Jordan Love wouldn't have been able to make some of those throws that ultimately helped them get in the end zone, create the distance that they had, and ultimately win this football game. They just weren't ready a month ago, a month and a half ago. Fast forward to week 13, after a strong performance on Thanksgiving, upsetting the Detroit Lions, and all of a sudden the Green Bay Packers have won 4 straight. They're 6-6. They're playing with an abundance of confidence. And all of a sudden, you're looking at Green Bay and the rest of their schedule, and you're saying they could win every single one of those games. Watch out for the Packers. And the Packers, they're not just saying, hey, watch out for the Packers as a wild card. They're saying, hey, don't count us out in this division neither. They're not going to catch Detroit. But if I'm not mistaken, they haven't played Detroit this season yet. I think they got 2 games with Detroit down the stretch. Let me check and see. But I feel pretty confident in making that assessment. They got 2 games with the Lions still to be played. And with the way the Lions are playing right now, or excuse me, they already beat the Lions. We just talked about that on Thanksgiving. I think they got one more with them. Probably the last game of the season. No. Let's see. Oh, they already lost to the Lions at home. So, no, they can't catch them. They would have needed to have one more against them and have that opportunity to sweep them, to catch them. But the Lions aren't playing great football, as we've seen, right? So, I don't see the Lions losing, 4 out of their last 5 or whatever it would take for Green Bay to catch them. But Green Bay's probably haven't taken their eye off of that prize yet. I think this statement was more about, hey, look out for Jordan Love, look out for this offense, look out for this football team. We coming. May not be this year, but we coming. Okay, I hear you. Statement made. And conversely, in that game, Kansas City, the statement that was made to me, and I've been saying this prior to the trade deadline, you got to add somebody. Zach Ertz is out there. I don't know how big of an addition at his age, they need something. And they could use another dude opposite Travis Kelce that if Kelce goes down, that it's not just over. Somebody else can fill that void for them. Like, Ertz still has solid football left in him. He'd fit perfectly in that Kansas City offense. They need another reliable pass catcher. They're struggling on offense. And the statement that was made is, this is not the same Chiefs team from the previous 5 years. It's a different group. They're vulnerable. They need to sign Zach Ertz. They need to make that happen. And then The biggest statement, obviously, of the week, and this is a no-brainer, right? The biggest statement was that of the San Francisco 49ers. Going to Philadelphia, putting boot to ass, and doing it in the manner that they did it. I mean, everything that we said the 49ers were capable of doing, they did. They showed finesse. They showed physicality. They showed that they can be a bully. They riled up the crowd. They got the security guard kicked out of the game, and then they proceeded to kick the Eagles' teeth in. Not there soon after. Like, they walked into the Lions' den, essentially. The Eagles' nest, if you will. And they destroyed that shit. They said, F your couch, F your nest, F the eggs that was in here when we got here, F all of that. They should have never gave y'all 10 wins. And they just stepped all over their nest. All the shit they were talking about Debo prior to the game, he made them eat it. 3 touchdowns, destroyed them. Brock Purdy soft. I heard that so many times this past week. Brock Purdy soft and this, that, and the third. Well, he returned to the scene of the crime. He exercised some demons. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, shredded them. They started slow. Understand that they put up 42 points, did the 49ers, without the help, without the aid of a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. You know, they did this all on offense. They scored 42 points in 3 quarters of ball. Remember, they were shut out in the first quarter. The score was 6-0 Philadelphia after 1. The 49ers didn't score their first point until, I want to say, the 10, maybe the 7-minute mark of the second quarter. They scored 42 points in 3 quarters, folks. 2.5 if we're being exact, but let's not be too, specific here. Let's not be an ass. They scored 42 points in 3 quarters. Meanwhile, the Eagles didn't sniff 20. Eagles haven't been manhandled like that in years. They weren't beat like that last year. They haven't been beaten like that this year. You got to go back to 2021 for an Eagles ass thrashing like that. I don't know who, other than maybe the staunchest of Eagles fans right now, could lay claim to the fact that the 49ers aren't the best team in the NFC right now. And you could argue in the league, because they've desecrated the 2 best teams, not named San Francisco, in the conference. We'll see what happens, but statement made. There's not a bigger statement that was made in week 13 than the one the 49ers made on Sunday afternoon at the link. Anyway, I digress. A lot of statements made in week 13, and that's the time. We're at that time of the year now where it's put up or shut up time. After Thanksgiving, all the jokes are done. The conversations about a lot of football being left, that shit is over with. Now it's nut cutting time. Either you're going to get it done or you're not. This is when we find out who's serious, who's not. And a lot of teams stepped up and said, hey, I'm serious. I'm fighting out here. I'm trying to go to the playoffs. Some teams made even more definitive statements. Hey, I'm trying to go get this chip. What you want? All right. I see you. So let's get to Slate Skatin. We're going to do this real quick because, again, I don't have a ton of time, but I don't need a lot of time for this. We've gone through most of these games already. So we'll make this nice, short, and sweet. We'll start with the Dolphins and Commanders. The Commanders, man, what an ass kicking this was. 45-15. This was 31-7 at half. Tyreek Hill, I don't even know what he did in this game. I stopped counting after 3 catches for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. I stopped counting at that point. When you give him one-on-one on the first third down of the game and he gets you for 78 yards, you would think they wouldn't do it again, but they did. And then he got us for a 62-yarder. And I'm just like, interesting methodology, if you will, of covering the best receiver in football who's on a pace for 2,000 yards. Interesting. Really interesting stuff. Either way, the Dolphins did what they were supposed to do to a bad, garbage, and just horrible Commanders team right now. They beat them up early and took away any hope of this game being competitive. That's what you do to bad teams. Hey, today ain't the day. And there was bad weather pretty much on the entire East Coast. It was way worse up north, but it was just bad all around on the East Coast. It was wet. It was nasty, windy conditions. Didn't phase the Chiefs or the Dolphins at all. They get it done 45-15 over the Commanders and move to 9-3. The Commanders drop to 4-9 on the season. Patriots and Chargers. 6-0 is your final score here. The Chargers get the win. I joked with somebody who picked the Chargers in the survivor pool, and I said, hey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And I know they had to be sweating this thing out because that's the Charger way right there. I mean, the Patriots are so bad. They started Bailey Zappi. He wasn't terrible, but he stinks. And, they had opportunities, and every time they started to move the ball, they would do something that bad teams do, a penalty or a sack or both. And it would just destroy and derail any drive or any momentum that they had. The Chargers, on the other side, weren't much better. Two Dicker the kicker field goals is all they had to show for their efforts on Sunday. But it wasn't because of their quarterback, Justin Herbert. He threw a couple of dimes in some critical third down situations that were dropped by guys that would have put them in, field position to score. Quentin Johnston, their first round pick, had an awful drop that stopped them from getting into field goal range. And then that would have put him in the touchdown range. I mean, that would have put him inside the 20, maybe even inside the 15-yard line, and he drops that one. And then their tight end, Donald Parham, drops one late in the game that would have put it away, essentially. He catches that and runs. He's in field goal range, and at that point, you work on the clock, you kick a field goal, you go up 9-0, the game's over. But he dropped that, and it forced the Patriots to get the football once more. But the Chargers defensively stepped up, made the plays they had been making all day, got off the field, and then Herbert delivers a strike to Alex Erickson late in the ball game to put the game away. And they took knees and won 6-0. It was nasty, to say the least. The Patriots are historically bad for their franchise right now, and changes will be coming at season's end as they drop to now 2-10 on the season, and they get even closer to the number 1 overall pick in the draft because the Arizona Cardinals won on Sunday, taking out the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-10 in a game that featured 2 rain delays. It was nasty on the Northeast, as I mentioned, just on the East Coast in general, but the Northeast, it was way worse. I mean, it was coming down in buckets in this game. And there was another game on the East Coast that I can't think of right now, where at one point it was coming down so gnarly. I was like, whoa, I can't even really see the play. It was on some Any Given Sunday Last Boy Scout type shit, where it was raining so bad you could barely see. Like, that's why they stopped the game in Pittsburgh. That, and then there was thunder and lightning. And once you get lightning, they shut it down. But anyway, I digress. The Steelers, they can't score. And so, having their quarterback go down, Kenny Pickett was scrambling for a touchdown down by the end zone. I initially thought it was a concussion that they were checking him for because his head hit the ground pretty hard. But in saying that, it ended up being an ankle injury for him. And he's going to have ankle surgery, but the Steelers are not putting him on IR, holding out hope that he can be back for the season finale, which they'll probably need him for in week 18 I believe it's against the Ravens, I think. But whatever the case may be, once he left the lineup, he literally got hurt at the 1 yard line. They could not punch it in. And that felt like a turning point in the game. They bring in Mitchell Trubisky. They try to run the ball in. They can't get it in. And they ended up getting stopped on 4th down. And it's like that gave the Cardinals all the life that they needed. And again, when you're playing a bad team, it is imperative that you take the wind out of their sails immediately, sort of like what the Dolphins did to the Commanders. It is imperative because if you don't, like the Chargers found out against the Patriots, even though the Chargers themselves aren't very good, what you find out very quickly is if you give a team life, they're going to hang around, and then they're going to start to believe they can win. And the Cardinals started to believe that they could win, and they started moving the football. And my thing was you got to make sure they're kicking field goals, and they were getting into the end zone. There was a big touchdown catch right before the half that made it 10-3. And that was the kind of play, if you're the Steelers, knowing that Kenny Pickett's out and he's probably not coming back, you got to keep him out of the end zone. And once they weren't able to do that, then the delay came at halftime, and I don't think the Steelers really ever recovered. And James Conner comes back to his old stomping grounds where he played college ball, where he played the beginning of his NFL career. Very emotional. You could see it. And he had a solid day, scored a touchdown, and really put the game away. And the Cardinals, they've been fighting their asses off all year long. It hasn't amounted to wins, but they've played hard. Anybody that's watched them has at least seen that. And they get it done 24-10. And the biggest problem with the Steelers, and look, it's Tomlin. I'm not going to discount them, but they just are offensively challenged. And there's only so much you can do when you're probably not going to score any more than 17 points. There's only so much you can do if that's what you're working with. Going into the game knowing, hey, we got to keep the other team out of the end zone. We can only give up 1 touchdown today. The rest got to be field goals because we probably not going to score more than 17. If we're lucky, we'll get to 20. That's a tough existence as a head coach. But Tomlin's been here so many times, he's comfortable in that environment. They dropped to 7-5. That's a hurtful loss. You got to, if you're serious about making the playoffs, if you're serious about making some noise, you got to beat Arizona at home. You can't lose that game if you're the Steelers. Colts and Titans, I already talked about this one. Overtime, Colts get it done 31-28. The biggest takeaway for me in this game was just the resiliency of the Indianapolis Colts. It was not a pretty game from them offensively or even defensively at times. But they made big plays. The first touchdown of the game. And the Titans, I thought this was a destructive loss by the Titans. 2 of the Colts touchdowns came on drives that were aided by 15-yard penalties. The first drive of the game, the Titans go down the field, score a touchdown. They're up 7-0. And you got them in 3rd and long, and you get a taunting penalty after a nice play by your safety. He gets up, talking shit, hand gestures to the Colts bench, and he gets hit with a taunting penalty. And then the very next play, they throw a deep ball for a touchdown. And it's just like, bro, you can't do that. You're 4-7. You can't do that. They had another penalty, a face mask penalty on a drive that led to another touchdown, right? On a drive where they had them, in a long down and distance situation and gave them a first down, and then the Colts took advantage. And then in overtime, Gardner Minshew connects with Alec Pierce, who had himself a ball game, and that set up the game-winning score. But if you're the Titans, you should have never even been there. You dominated the first half of this game. You were up 17-7. You were doing whatever you wanted to do. Derrick Henry gets a concussion or concussion-like symptoms. He had to leave the game, did not return. That hurt them a little bit, but the special teams gaffes are what did them in, really, honestly. That and the penalties and the mistakes, but you essentially gave up 10 points. We don't see 2 block kicks in the same game, rarely in the NFL. But they got creative. The first one was just a breakdown of protection. The second one, they pulled the old Bill Belichick dude off the corner, running in with a running start, and they didn't touch him, and he blocks the kick, and in the process, he hurts the punter, who's one of the Titans' best players, Ryan Stonehouse. And So now they need a new holder. Ryan Tannehill has to hold on the extra point that's going to give them the 1-point lead, 26 to 25. And he misses the kick. And I'd like to think that the hold was not the best, and that's why it was missed. And that turned out to be the difference in the game. So the Colts are now 7-5 after the overtime victory. I know you saw Gardner Minshew dancing in the locker room. Good for him. Kind of feels like Taylor Heineke to me with the Commanders last year. We were 7-5 at this point last year too. And our quarterback was dancing in the locker room and, F this and F that. And we were all excited. Feels like the bottom's going to drop out of this thing any second now. But I can tell you this much. There's a different belief in that locker room than it was in Washington's last year. I'll tell you that much. And they got a real offensive coordinator over there, a real head coach that can call and draw them up. So it's funny because this is, to me, the epitome of coaching. This is the same talent they had last year that sucked ass. And the quarterback didn't get that much better. I mean, it's Gardner Minshew. But the coach has a better understanding of what the talent can and can't do, putting them in better positions to succeed. It's the same talent. They didn't do much different, and you're getting different results. Titans are now 4-8, first home loss of the season. But Will Levis is a keeper. I think they got their quarterback. I'll say that. Texans, Broncos, we talked about that game already. But big win for the Texans. I told you guys last year, or 2 years ago, rather, 2 drafts ago, my favorite corner in that draft was Derek Stingley Jr. And everybody loved Sauce Gardner, and he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. And I said, I still think the best pound-for-pound corner is Derek Stingley Jr. When he's healthy, when he's right, there isn't a better player. And so far, it's been all Sauce Gardner. But this kid has been playing ball this year, and he had a coming-out party in this game. Last week, he had a pick, a big one. This week, 2 more, including the game clincher. And both of his picks were huge in this game as the Texans win 22-17 over the surging Broncos. Texans moved to 7-5. But this was all about the ability of the Texans to force turnovers. Like Russell Wilson had a rough go of it. They had not really turned it over, and they were creating turnovers. Russell Wilson threw 3 picks, 2 of them to Derek Stingley, and then Jimmy Ward with the game-clinching pick at the very end. Everything that they did in this game, that being the Texans, was timely. And you look at the draft picks that they've been making, C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson in the first round this year, Derek Stingley Jr. in the first round last year. All 3 of those guys were huge in this game. Will Anderson was everywhere in this game. Special teams, sacks, you name it, run game. He was doing it. Derek Stingley, 2 picks. C.J. Stroud continues to be a really good story for the Texans this year. And they're doing some really good things. This is a well-coached team. They've bought in. They're making timely plays like they did in this game. They knew that the offense wasn't going to be putting up prolific numbers against this Broncos defense. And what did they do? The defense stepped up, created 3 turnovers, and offense, most importantly, took care of the ball. That's how Denver's been feasting during this win streak. They took care of the ball, and the offense, or the defense rather, did the rest, and they come out victorious 22-17. The big news for the Texans, however, that puts a bit of a damper on this is they lose that rookie receiver that was playing extraordinarily well, Tank Dell, to a fractured ankle, I believe. It was a weird situation. He was already dealing with an ankle injury coming into the game. They had a little scrum down by the end zone on a touchdown run. He gets caught up in the pile and gets rolled up on. But Nico Collins also, remember, massive day for Nico Collins. I think he had like 9 catches. Let me go look at Nico's numbers real quick. Nico Collins had 9 for 191. I thought it was 9 for 191. 9 for 191 and a tub on 12 targets. C.J. Stroud is elevating these receivers, right? Noah Brown had himself a day against Cincinnati. Nico Collins, the second time he's went apeshit this year. You know, we've seen Tank Dell in the numbers he's been posting, and it all stems from the quarterback. extending plays, making throws. The offensive line is doing a tremendous job of giving Stroud a lot of time, but he's also creating time on his own as well. And these guys are getting open. And you got to give credit to Bobby Slowick, too, the offensive coordinator. He's doing a wonderful job of drawing up these plays to get guys. I mean, Texans receivers are wide open a lot of times. And again, some of it off script, off schedule, but some of it is just in the timing and rhythm of the play. Guys are just running wide open. And that's the mark of a Kyle Shanahan offense, is that when you do it right, when you execute it to perfection, guys are running wide open. And CJ Stroud's not missing. Lions Saints, what a weird game this was. So Lions jump out to a 21-0 lead to start this game. I'm talking first quarter is 21-0. Same thing that Baltimore kind of did to them in Baltimore about a month ago. They were doing to the Saints, and I'm thinking, oh man. And you know how I feel about the Saints. Like, something's off with that team. I can't quite put my finger on it, but they're not a good team, and I don't know if I specifically know why. I mean, there's reasons that I can give you, but I can't point to the biggest reason why they suck. And here go the Lions, exercising some demons. They haven't been playing well. They barely beat the Bears 2 weeks ago. They got trampled at home on Thanksgiving, or it started off rough for them, I'll say. They didn't make a comeback, but fell short to the Packers. And so people are looking at them like, are you for real or what? And so they go out and they make a statement. First quarter, 21-0. I mean, they're beating the brakes off of the Saints, picking off Derek Carr, roughing them up, getting every time they touch the ball, touchdown. And then they kind of go into this lull, like almost as if they thought they won the game already. And Derek Carr gets knocked out of the game. What's new? If you're a Saints fan, how many times have you seen that happen this year, where he starts the game and doesn't finish it? In comes Jameis Winston, and they start to mount a comeback. And they start scratching and clawing their way back into this thing. And next thing you know, this is a one-score game. They've got multiple opportunities with the football, and they can't get it done. And then the Lions, once and for all, said, all right, enough is enough. They hit the reverse to Jamison Williams. He scores a touchdown, puts the game not out of reach, but it gives them the momentum that they need to finish this thing up. They get the defensive stop that they need. They get the ball back, and they put it away on offense, including going for it on a fourth down and getting it. And their tight end, he was huge. He had a massive game. Let me see what his number is. I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you hit in the draft. And they hit in the draft on Jahmyr Gibbs, who had a really solid performance. But they really hit on Sam Laporta. He's been a revelation for them. 9 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown from the tight end position. Like, when you're getting that kind of production out of your tight end, you got to feel damn good. And he made some big catches on that last drive to put it away, including on 3rd and 8 in double coverage, where he just, catches the football in traffic. And Goff had the confidence to go to him in that spot, and he delivers. And the Lions deliver on the road. It wasn't pretty, as they built that big lead and weren't able to hold on to it as aggressively as you would have liked to see them do. But it's gritty, and most importantly, it's a Dubsky 33-28 as the Saints fall to 5-7. Derek Carr hurt again. Winston had to finish up the game. He comes in, does a solid job, but it's just not enough. And the Lions improved to 9-3 on the season. The Saints fall to 5-7. Falcons, Jets, real quick. I'm not going to stay here long. 13-8 win for the Falcons. This was a shit show. It was raining the entire game. It was sloppy. The play on the field was sloppy. The Falcons weren't good, but the Jets were even worse. And that's Tim Boyle stinks. And the fact that they even thought Tim Boyle was the answer at any point is an indictment on that staff. I would have just stuck with Zach Wilson, or I'd have went to Trevor Siemian. But Tim Boyle stinks, and he didn't give him a chance. They bench him at the end of the game, bring in Trevor Siemian. He gave him a better shot, but it wasn't much better. And they lose this game 13-8. And, the crazy part is you thinking, oh, they had 8 points. They scored a touchdown, 2 point. No. They got a safety. They were winning this game where the Jets 2-0. And I was thinking they're going to win this game. And it was exactly the kind of game. It was wet. It was nasty. It was a defensive struggle. But what I didn't account for was the Atlanta Falcons defense stepping up the way that they did. And I get it. The Jets offense stinks. But their defense stepped up. They made every single play that had to be made. When they needed to play, they made it defensively, whether it was a sack, whether it was stopping the run, not allowing Breece Hall to get that one, sliver of daylight as he's had in some of these victories. They didn't give up any big explosives. They did, one or two times to the receiver, but it wasn't like touchdown explosives. Like, yeah, okay, big play out the midfield. Now what you going to do with it? And they end up punting, right? So they stepped up, and at the end of the game, when they could have lost this thing, they made stops defensively, and they won the game 13-8. It's not really much more to say about that. They're 6-6. They lead the division, and they should win that division. I think they're the best team in that division, but it's a problem because it's still Desmond Ridder. And I'm like, at any point, he can throw 2 or 3 interceptions in a game. And I'm just not safe with – I don't think they're safe with Desmond Ridder as their quarterback. And I think they know that, but it is what it is. They got to live with that bed that they made, right? They got to sleep in it. Panthers and Bucks. Bucks get the win, 21-18, move to 5-7, tied with the Saints for second place in the NFC South, behind 6-6 Atlanta. Panthers drop to 1-11 as their miserable season continues. Mike Evans scores on a 75-yard touchdown in this game, tops 1,000 yards for the 10th straight year, sets an NFL record that I don't know if will ever be broken again. I don't think Mike Evans gets the just due that he deserves in the NFL. So often when we talk about receivers in this league and, the dominant guys, Mike Evans' name rarely gets brought up, but he's been a model of consistency, as the 10 straight years of 1,000 yards receiving indicates. And I don't think people realize how hard that is to do, because you have to stay healthy for 10 straight years. And he didn't play with a Tom Brady for 10 straight years. He didn't play with a Ben Roethlisberger or Drew Brees or a Peyton Manning for 10 straight years, where he could put up gaudy numbers year in, year out with a guy that he had a rapport with. This is Jameis Winston. This is Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is Tom Brady. Now it's Baker Mayfield. It doesn't matter who's throwing this dude the football. Put 1,000 down in the bank in terms of yards. And it just speaks volumes to who this guy has been throughout his career and the model of consistency he's been since being drafted out of Texas A&M. And he was big in this game, obviously, with what he was able to produce. Another 100-yard game for him. 7 catches, 162 yards, that 75-yarder, as I mentioned. I mean, he was really – the next closest guy in receiving in the game had 3 catches for 22 yards. Mike Evans had 7 catches for 162 yards, 23 per catch. So that tells you there was no other offense. It was just Mike Evans, essentially. And that was enough, because the Panthers stink. And you know what the rule is when you change coaches in season, you're going to win that next game. And they had every opportunity to do it. They're just not good enough. They had opportunities to steal this game. And I told you, it didn't feel like a mutiny where it had to happen and now you're going to get that boost. It felt rushed. It didn't feel organic. It felt like a impulsive owner making a change for the sake of making a change. And it didn't yield the results that it was supposed to. But the Bucs are like, we'll take it. They're 5-7. They're hanging around. The Panthers are now 1-11. Browns and Rams. Rams get it done 36-19. They're starting to click, man. They're starting to hit their stride. It took a little while, right? They've had their moments this season where you see some of the ability to get it done, but the consistency wasn't there. They do it one week and then they go back to being inconsistent. Stafford would get banged up, or, Cooper Kupp would be out. But, they're starting to really hit their stride. And the beauty of it is, it's not just Cooper Kupp anymore. Like right now, he's an afterthought. And that's a good thing if you're a Rams fan, because he's still capable of taking a game over. But right now, they're featuring Puka Nacua, who was the guy that stood up and took on that challenge when there was no Cooper Kupp at the beginning of the season. And everybody just assumed, oh, Kupp's back. Puka Nacua will just fade to black, and it'll be the Cooper Kupp show all over again. And it looked like that when he first came back. That first game back versus Philadelphia, he had like 9 catches for 100 yards, and every time it was a big spot, he was the one being thrown the football. But I think they've evolved their offense now to where Puka Nacua is a huge part of this offense. And he had 4 catches for 105 yards and a 70-yard touchdown. He had 2 carries for 34 yards. Like, he is a huge part of this offense right now. Meanwhile, Cooper Kupp only had 8 targets, 6 catches, 39 yards. So it's not like, they're – and Demarcus Robinson, who I've really liked since his Kansas City days. He went to Baltimore and was solid there. 4 catches, 55 yards and a touchdown. So, they're spreading the wealth. They're running the football. Kyron Williams is such a huge part of their offense now. He's everything that they thought Cam Akers was going to be. He's everything for them that they thought Cam Akers was going to be. 21 carries, 88 yards, a touchdown, coming off of a week last week where he had over 200 yards of all-purpose offense. So he's tearing it up right now. Stafford, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, managing the game well. And that's 2 straight weeks of over 30 points for this Rams offense. So now they're starting to click. And just looking at their schedule, again, a lot of winnable games left on this thing. They got the Commanders up in 2 weeks. They got the Ravens this week, Commanders, Saints, Giants, and then the Niners to finish up. They can win 3 out of those final 5 games, right? They'll be favored probably in the Commanders, Saints, and Giants games. They'll be favored in those games. And we'll see. The 49ers may not even need that Week 18 game. You know what I'm saying? So this is a dangerous Rams team right now. They're clicking on offense. The defense is playing well. This was a close game. Like, the score is a little deceptive. This was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter until Joe Flacco threw a late pick. And look, Flacco came in. He played well, gave him a chance, 23 of 44. That's a lot of attempts for a dude that just got there like a week and a half ago. 2 touchdowns. That 1 interception was huge because, again, this was a close ball game. I think it might have been, at that time, it might have been like 23-19, something to that effect. Score-wise, he throws that pick, and the Rams get a great return. They turn that into a touchdown, and they ultimately kind of run away and hide with this game. But this game was relatively close, right? This was a close ball game until the Browns threw the pick, and then they had to go for it on 4th down, and that set up another scoring opportunity, and the Rams took advantage. But again, that's not to take away from the Rams. They're playing good football right now. And they're now 6-6, just like Green Bay. 6-6 on the season after starting slow and people kind of leaving them for dead. Here they are resurrecting their season. And in a weak NFC, back into the NFC that's wide open, with 6-6 Minnesota and 6-6 Seattle. Here comes 6-6 Green Bay, and now 6-6 Los Angeles in terms of the Rams. So last but not least, 49ers, Eagles. We won't spend a whole hell of a lot of time because I've done that already to an extent. But 42-19 is your final score here. I mean, just a thorough ass kicking dished out by the 49ers. And the beauty of what they were able to do in this game is they took the Eagles' early punch, and they not only took that punch, but they then delivered a massive blow. They scored 21 unanswered points in this game. Like I said, they came out and they went 3 and out, and the Eagles were moving the football. Their defense stood up in the red zone, forced field goals, and then when they finally got clicking, it was over. The Eagles had no answers. That defense continued to play. They were hitting. They tore the running back DeAndre Swift's ass up twice. Pause. Lit his ass up at the beginning of the game. Lit his ass up late in the game. They were hitting out there. They weren't bullshitting around. Now, I'll just tell you that this doesn't mean Philadelphia can't beat San Francisco. What it says is that shit that they've been pulling this year, starting slow, and then you can't pull that shit against a team like San Francisco. And that's what I've been trying to convey to Eagles fans is, look, what you've been doing this season, I'm not looking to discount that. You were 10-1, you were finding ways to win, but your defense is trash, which is what I've been telling them. They didn't want to hear it because they were winning games, but your defense is trash, and you can't keep living on the edge and expecting to beat good teams. You'll beat bad teams like that, and you'll catch a good team in a week where they don't have their fastball, and you can come back. Like Kansas City has their faults. You caught them, and you were able to get them, right? The Bills, we know they've got their faults. You caught them, you were able to get them. But you keep doing that against teams like San Francisco, you're not going to win. and it happened. So now you just go back to the drawing board. They signed Shaquille Leonard, so he's going to add to that defense, we think, because the linebackers had their worst game of the season, and I've been telling them their linebackers are trash, but they've been playing well. But I said those guys are journeyman linebackers for a reason. So signing Shaq Leonard should bolster their defense if he's still got anything left. There's a reason I believe he was on the bench in Indy and wasn't playing, but we'll see. At the end of the day, if you're, the Philadelphia Eagles, wipe this one from the memory bank. Understand that you got a big one on Sunday Night Football on the road at Dallas. You take care of that one and you restore order and justice within the division, and then you can set your sights on trying to get that number 1 seed and telling the 49ers to come do it again in the playoffs. What you don't want to do is have to go to Santa Clara. That's what you don't want to do. But we'll see what happens. If you're the 49ers, statement made. I don't really need to expound upon it. You dominated in every facet of this game. Really good coverage in the secondary, I thought, was the key, because the pressure wasn't necessarily great on Jalen Hurts, but they did a really good job of keeping him in the pocket, not allowing him to scramble around and extend. And then the coverage down the field was excellent. That's part of the reason they sacked Hurts 3 or 4 times in this game. It wasn't because it was immense pressure immediately upon snap. He didn't have anywhere to go with the football down the field. And you got to credit the secondary of the San Francisco 49ers and their linebackers, for that matter, for making it difficult on Jalen Hurts. And Deebo Samuel, what more can I say? He was shrouded in controversy before the game for things that he had said, things that were being said about him. And he had said after the loss last year, if we had our quarterback, we would have beat y'all. A lot of people didn't like that in Philadelphia. So he had a target on his back, and he went out there and he stuck it to the Eagles. 3 touchdowns, 2 of them on explosive plays, 1 down by the end zone on a run. They had no answers for Deebo Samuel. No answers whatsoever. George Kittle was also good. So were the others, right? Brandon Ayuk, Jennings, Juwan Jennings. That supporting cast, and Brock Purdy was outstanding too. There was a key stretch. You had the ejection with Drake Greenlaw and the security guard. The Eagles had went down and they scored. It was 21-13. They were back in the game. The crowd was in full throat. This was the loudest they were the entire game. There's a 3rd and 7. If they don't convert this, feels like the Eagles are going to turn the tide and do what they did to Buffalo and did what they did to Kansas City. And Brock Purdy throws a dart on 3rd and 7 to Brandon Ayuk on the right sideline to convert a 3rd and 7. They go on. Deebo Samuel catches the ball, breaks the tackle, runs for the touchdown, and made it 28-13. And from that point on, the Eagles were done. Game was over. That's your slate from Week 13 in the National Football League, which takes me to garbage time. Got some supers. We'll knock these out, and then we'll get out of here. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, what's more important, wins or the draft position? At this point, the draft position is. You don't want to keep losing. I just want to be competitive. I don't mind losing down the stretch. I say that. I get to Sunday, and I'm rooting for the boys to find a way to win. But at the end of the day, losing is more important right now. You don't want to improve your draft stock at this point. And I just want us to be competitive. You want the best of both worlds. Be competitive, play a hell of a game, and fall short. We've done that very well this season. Twice against the Eagles, against the Seahawks. Just do that. That's the blueprint I'm trying to follow, not the one we've seen the last 3 weeks. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, LB crying because the D ain't all that. I mean, I've been trying to tell him he didn't want to hear it. So I don't want to hear it. Conversely, he didn't want to hear that because they were 10-1. Remember what a wise woman once told me. Those who don't hear, feel. I can't say any more plain than that, right? Junior Nando, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you, Junior, who writes, what is Jordan Love's upside? Top 10 QB? I think he could be. There's a void right now. After the Mahomes and the Burrows and, like Hurts is in that conversation, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Herbert. There's a void after like the first 6 or 7 quarterbacks that's not filled right now, because that's where the Kirk Cousins, the Dak Prescotts, the Derek Carrs and all of those guys have been kind of occupying space, but I feel like Derek Carr is being pushed back. Dak may be being pushed up, right? He's the way he's playing right now, but guys like Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill and all those guys that were occupying those, 12, 13, 14, those spots are being vacated now. And there's a void there of where you can ascend and insert yourself in the 11 or 12th best quarterback in the league conversation. Top 10 on the border of top 10. And, Love's got a long way to go, but there's definitely an opportunity there. Like Tua's trying to ascend into that conversation. And a guy like Love could definitely find himself in there with obviously more reps, more opportunities. He's going to have to prove himself. But Jordan Love definitely has top 10 talent. He's got the ability to spin it. He's athletic. He can throw off platform. He can make things happen. Now it's about consistency for him. Junior Nando, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, this is for yesterday when someone said you thought Jordan Love was going to be the worst quarterback in 2020. You actually were high on him. I had to investigate, and fair to say, closer to Pat than Sam Howell is. J-Lo is closer to Pat Mahomes than Sam Howell is. I wouldn't disagree with that. Size, athleticism, throwing off of multiple platforms. I'd say Jordan Love is much closer to Patrick Mahomes than Sam Howell is. Facts. They're different types of quarterbacks. They're built different. Their styles are different. But I think both of them can be highly effective in the NFL. They just would be doing it in different manners. But I was high on Jordan Love. That was my guy coming out of that 2020 draft. Outside of Joe Burrow, I thought Jordan Love had a chance to be the second best quarterback after Burrow in that 2020 draft class. So I'm not surprised that he's playing well. It's just about consistency. Need to see it over and over and over again. Thank you for that, Junior Nando. So quickly tonight, Jags at home. They don't get many primetime home games. They get an opportunity to showcase who they are against the Cincinnati Bengals team that's not going to lie down for them. They're a quality defense, but we know offensively they just don't have it without Burrow. So the question is, can you dominate at home against an inferior opponent that you're supposed to beat if you're serious? Because look, the Chiefs lost. You got a chance to go to the top of the AFC conference with a win. And you're right there with Baltimore at 9-3 and the Dolphins. And you've got a chance to really assert yourself. Can you do it? I think that's the question. If you're Jacksonville, you got to take care of business. I see them taking care of business, but I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to win tonight, but I think it's going to be on some 24 to 20 type shit, some 23-17 type shit. But I think they're going to win. Give me the Jags tonight. Take care of business. And you know where to find me at Games End. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 377th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Wednesday. You know what it is on Wednesdays. We'll open it up. Social media maneuvers and all of that good stuff. Hey, guys. I'm almost done. Give me a second. And so social media maneuvers on Wednesday. We'll open up the floor. We'll talk about some of everything under the sun. And then, of course, I'll see you for the Games End tonight. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys take care. God bless. And good night.